In the course of our lives, we often ask, where do I begin? Let me suggest that the answer is not a place, an achievement, or even a personal resolution. It is a person, God. To start with God and walk with Him is not merely a poetic idea, but the very essence of a meaningful and fulfilled life. When you start with God, you are laying your life on a foundation that cannot be shaken. It is in Him that we find clarity about who we are and why we exist. Without God, even our greatest accomplishments can feel empty, like a house built on sand. But with God, every step, no matter how small, takes. When we consider the foundations of our lives, it becomes clear that where we start often determines where we end up. To begin with God is to anchor ourselves in the ultimate source of life, purpose, and truth. Starting with God is not simply a matter of acknowledging His existence. It is the intentional act of placing Him at the center of our lives and allowing Him to shape our thoughts, decisions, and actions. This is the beginning of a life lived with meaning and direction, a life grounded in something far greater than ourselves. Without God, our pursuits, no matter how ambitious or well-meaning, are prone to drift into confusion and frustration. We may achieve success by worldly standards, but it is often accompanied by a gnawing sense of emptiness. Why? Because we were created for more than self-sufficiency and fleeting accomplishments. We were made to be in relationship with God, to draw our identity and purpose from Him. To start anywhere else is like building a house without a firm foundation. It may stand for a while, but it will inevitably collapse under the weight of life's challenges. Beginning with God provides clarity. When we recognize Him as the Creator, we understand that He holds the blueprint for our lives. This understanding frees us from the pressure to define our worth by societal standards or personal achievements. Instead, we find our value in being His creation, deeply loved and uniquely purposed. His truth becomes the lens through which we see the world, guiding us to make decisions that align with His eternal wisdom rather than our limited perspective. Starting with God gives us strength. Life is unpredictable, filled with joys and sorrows, victories and setbacks. Without a strong foundation, we can easily be overwhelmed by the uncertainties and burdens we face. But when we begin with God, we are rooted in His unchanging character, His goodness, faithfulness, and power. He becomes the source of our resilience, providing stability and hope, even in the most difficult circumstances. To start with God is to recognize that He is not just the beginning but the sustainer of all things. It is to trust that His ways are higher than ours, and that by aligning ourselves with Him, we are embarking on the only path that leads to lasting peace and fulfillment. Life is not a static experience. It is a dynamic journey filled with twists, turns, and countless opportunities for growth. Walking with God means inviting Him to join us in every step of that journey, not as a distant observer, but as a constant companion and guide. This walk is not a one-time decision, but ongoing relationship, one that shapes our character, refines our perspective, and aligns our lives with His divine purposes. To walk with God is to embrace a partnership. It requires us to actively engage with Him, seeking His will and trusting His guidance. Unlike a journey taken alone, walking with God offers us the assurance that we are never without direction or support. He leads us through paths we might never have chosen for ourselves, but those paths often hold the greatest opportunities for transformation and growth. His wisdom, far beyond our own, ensures that, even when the way seems uncertain, it is always purposeful. This journey also invites us to grow in faith. Faith is not something that remains static. It deepens and strengthens as we walk with God through life's varying seasons. There will be times of joy when His blessings are evident, and there will be seasons of challenge when trust in His unseen hand becomes essential. Each step of the journey, whether on smooth ground or rugged terrain, serves as an opportunity to rely more fully on His grace and provision. Walking with God transforms how we see ourselves and others. As we spend time in His presence, we begin to reflect His character. We learn humility, recognizing our dependence on Him. We develop compassion, seeing others through His eyes. We gain wisdom, understanding that life is not merely about personal gain, but about living in harmony with His eternal purposes. This walk is not a hurried sprint to a destination. It is a steady, intentional progression. God is patient, and He meets us where we are, teaching us to trust His timing and rest in His promises. Walking with Him brings peace in the journey itself, not just in reaching the goal. It reminds us that life's ultimate purpose is not found in worldly achievements, but in the relationship we build with the One who created us. To walk with God is to step into a life of meaning, trust, and enduring hope. When we allow God to lead us, His presence does more than simply accompany us. It transforms us from the inside out. The transformative nature of walking with God is profound and undeniable. It is not a matter of superficial change or fleeting inspiration. It is a deep, enduring work that reshapes our hearts, minds, and lives in ways we could never accomplish on our own. God's transformative work begins with our hearts. As we walk with Him, He draws us closer, revealing His love and grace in ways that soften even the hardest of hearts. This love compels us to confront our flaws and surrender them to His care. Bitterness is replaced with forgiveness, pride with humility, and fear with courage. It is a process that takes time, but each step we take with God refines us, helping us to become more like Him. Our minds are also renewed in His presence. Walking with God allows us to see the world through the lens of His truth. Our understanding shifts from a limited human perspective to a view that is shaped by His eternal wisdom. We begin to value what truly matters: faith, love, and obedience, over temporary and shallow pursuits. His word becomes a lamp to our feet and a light to our path, guiding our decisions and giving us discernment in every situation. This transformation extends to our outward lives as well. When God is at work within us, the changes are visible to those around us. Our priorities align with His will, our actions reflect His character, and our relationships are enriched by His presence. We become vessels of His grace, sharing His love with others and making a positive impact on the world. What begins as a personal journey with God inevitably overflows into a life that inspires and uplifts those we encounter. The transformative nature of walking with God is not just about change. It is about becoming who we were created to be. It is a journey of redemption, where our brokenness is made whole, and our weaknesses become opportunities for His strength to shine. This transformation is not something we earn or achieve. It is a gift of grace, given freely to those who walk with Him in faith and surrender. In God's presence, we are continually being made new, a living testament to His power and love. Human nature often leans towards self-reliance. We take pride in our abilities, intelligence, and resourcefulness, seeking to carve out paths that reflect our ambitions and desires. Yet the reality is that no matter how capable we are, our understanding is finite, our strength limited, and our vision incomplete. Dependence on God, not ourselves, is the key to true wisdom, peace, and fulfillment. This dependence is not a sign of weakness, rather it is an acknowledgement of God's infinite power and wisdom, which far surpass our own. Relying on ourselves can lead to pride when things go well, or despair when they don't. When we place our trust in our abilities alone, we inevitably face moments where our efforts fall short. Life's uncertainties, challenges, and complexities reveal the limits of human understanding. But when we depend on God, we draw from a wellspring of wisdom and strength that never runs dry. He knows the end from the beginning and understands the intricacies of every situation we face. Trusting in Him liberates us from the burden of having to figure everything out on our own. Dependence on God also transforms how we approach challenges. Instead of being overwhelmed by difficulties, we learn to cast our burdens upon Him, knowing that He cares for us. This does not mean life becomes devoid of struggle, but it does mean we are no longer alone in our struggles. God provides us with the grace to endure, the wisdom to navigate, and the courage to persevere. Strength becomes evident in our weakness, turning moments of vulnerability into opportunities for His power to work through us. When we depend on God, we also experience a profound peace that transcends circumstances. This peace is not rooted in the absence of problems, but in the presence of a faithful and loving God. It is the assurance that no matter what comes our way, He is in control and is working all things together for our good. Such peace cannot be manufactured or found in self-reliance. It is a gift that flows from trusting in Him. Dependence on God is an act of surrender. It is choosing to let go of our limited perspective and place our lives in the hands of the One who knows all, loves perfectly, and leads faithfully. In doing so, we discover a life of true freedom, purpose, and joy. One of the most profound truths about walking with God is the necessity of aligning our will with His. This alignment is not about losing ourselves or abandoning our identity. It is about surrendering our limited perspective to embrace the perfect will of a God who knows us better than we know ourselves. It is an act of trust, recognizing that His plans are not only greater than ours, but also designed for our ultimate good and His glory. Our natural inclination is to prioritize our desires, ambitions, and plans. We often believe that we know what is best for our lives and pursue our goals with determination. However, this self-centered approach can lead to frustration and disappointment when things do not go as we hoped. When we align our will with God's, we shift our focus from controlling outcomes to trusting His guidance. This does not mean abandoning ambition or drive, but rather submitting our plans to His sovereign wisdom and seeking His direction in all we do. Surrendering our will to God brings clarity and purpose. His will is not arbitrary or restrictive. It is a reflection of His character, loving, just, and wise. When we choose to follow His will, we step into the path that leads to true fulfillment. We begin to see our lives as part of a greater story, one where every decision and action holds eternal significance. Instead of chasing fleeting successes, we align ourselves with His eternal purposes, finding joy and meaning in serving Him. This alignment also brings peace in uncertainty. Life is full of unknowns, and the weight of making decisions can be overwhelming. But when we trust in God's will, we no longer bear that burden alone. He guides us through His Word, His Spirit and His providence, leading us step by step. Even when His plans differ from ours, we can rest in the knowledge that His ways are higher than ours, and that He works all things for our good. Aligning our will with God's is a daily commitment. It requires humility to acknowledge that His wisdom surpasses ours, and courage to follow His leading, even when it challenges us. But in this surrender we find true freedom. A life no longer bound by our limitations, but empowered by His boundless grace and purpose. Life is filled with challenges, some expected, others arriving without warning. These challenges can leave us feeling overwhelmed, defeated, or uncertain about the future. However, when we walk with God, we are equipped to face difficulties with courage and faith. God's presence in our lives transforms challenges into opportunities for growth, shaping us into stronger, wiser, and more resilient individuals. Walking with God means we are never alone, even in our darkest moments. While challenges may test our strength, they also remind us of our need for God's guidance and support. He does not promise a life free from trials, but He does promise to walk through them with us. In the storms of life, God is our refuge and strength, a constant presence who steadies us when we feel shaken. Knowing this gives us the courage to face obstacles not in fear, but in faith. God also provides us with the resources we need to overcome difficulties. Through His Word we gain wisdom to navigate life's complexities. His promises offer hope when circumstances seem bleak, and His Spirit strengthens us when our own energy falters. Challenges become moments where we experience God's power in action as He works through our weaknesses to achieve His purposes. This not only builds our faith, but also deepens our relationship with Him. Facing challenges with God also changes our perspective. Instead of seeing trials as meaningless or destructive, we begin to view them as opportunities for refinement. Just as fire refines gold, life's challenges refine our character, teaching us perseverance, patience, and humility. These traits cannot be developed in comfort. They are forged in the crucible of difficulty. Walking with God ensures that we do not endure these trials in vain. He uses them to shape us into the people we are meant to be. Challenges faced with God often become testimonies of His faithfulness. When we look back on the obstacles we've overcome, we see how He provided, protected, and guided us. These experiences not only strengthen our faith, but also enable us to encourage others who may be walking through similar struggles. Walking with God transforms challenges into stepping stones rather than stumbling blocks. His presence gives us the strength to persevere, the wisdom to grow, and the assurance that no challenge is beyond His ability to handle. With God, even the hardest trials are not just endured, they are redeemed. At the core of every human heart is a longing for joy, meaning, and fulfillment. People seek these things in many ways, through success, relationships, possessions, or experiences. Yet the satisfaction they find is often temporary and incomplete. True and lasting joy, however, is found in walking with God. When we start with Him and walk closely with Him, we discover a depth of joy that transcends circumstances and fulfills the deepest desires of our souls. God is the source of joy because He is the creator and sustainer of life itself. In His presence we find everything we need: love, peace, purpose, and hope. Walking with Him is not a mere duty or religious obligation. It is an invitation to experience the fullness of life as He intended it. This joy is not dependent on external factors. While the world's happiness often relies on favorable circumstances, the joy that comes from God endures, even in times of difficulty. It is a joy rooted in the assurance of His love, the constancy of His presence, and the promises of His word. As we walk with God, we begin to see life through His perspective. The mundane becomes meaningful, and the temporal gains eternal significance. Simple moments, such as helping someone in need, praying, or reflecting on His creation, become profound experiences of connection with Him. This shift in perspective allows us to appreciate life's blessings more deeply, and to find joy even in the midst of challenges. Walking with God fills our lives with purpose. We are not aimlessly wandering through life, but are part of His greater plan. This sense of purpose brings a unique joy that comes from knowing we are contributing to something eternal. When we align our lives with His will, we experience the fulfillment of living as we were created to live. Lastly, the joy of walking with God overflows into every area of our lives. It strengthens our relationships as we learn to love others with the same grace and compassion we receive from Him. It gives us hope for the future, knowing that our journey with Him does not end in this life, but continues into eternity. Walking with God is the greatest privilege and the ultimate source of joy. It is a journey that fills our hearts with peace, our minds with purpose, and our lives with a profound sense of fulfillment that can only come from Him.